Iraq. Our war with the Hamas terrorist organization in the Gaza Strip has returned, and this week, Israel resumed fighting, and the IDF is trying to apply military pressure on Hamas to bring it back to the negotiating table under more favorable conditions for Israel, aiming to maximize the number of living hostages to be released from captivity. The bombings in the Gaza Strip are based on precise intelligence and the target locations where there are no hostages. The IDF is also trying throughout aerial bombings to strike senior in the Gaza Strip to toppling Hamas rule. In addition, the IDF is attempting to carry out Hamas attacks within Israeli territory. The IDF is attempting to prevent those attacks that Hamas is trying to carry out in our territories. And according to security sources, Hamas planned in the last month to carry out attacks and take the initiative into its own hands. This is again trying to surprise Israel, just like they did on October 7. But because of this, in the special live version of Boots on the Ground, I will take you into the depths of the targets, the advance of the forces, and the most up-to-date information that we have on what our army is doing. Boots on the Ground for the structured plan of the new Israeli Chief of Staff. This time, the fighting includes the possibility of a significant expansion of operations into Hamas, and something that Hamas will not return from unless they resume negotiations with Israel. So what we will have? Here are the headlines of this report. This week began Operation Oz Vecherev, Sword and Strength. Israel was forced into an unavoidable return to war against the Hamas terrorist organization. Since then, about 20 Hamas targets in the Gaza Strip have been attacked, and waves of strikes continued. The IDF is preparing for an expansion of operations and will decide on that according to how Hamas acts. The IDF has partially reasserted control over the Netzarim corridor, which separates Gaza from north to south, and Golani forces have been deployed on the borders. The army confirmed that forces re-entered up to the center of the Netzarim corridor and seized control of it. The IDF began operations to expand the security zone and create a partial buffer between the north and the southern parts of the Gaza Strip. Ground operations in Gaza have been expanded, and the Salah el-Adin road has been completely closed. Who is in the crosshairs in the Hamas terrorist organization? Mohammed Sinwar and the Sinu Hamas members who remain inside the Gaza Strip. Up to now, in Oz Vecherev, this operation, Issam Dalisis and additional senior internal security officials have been eliminated. However, there are still several senior figures in Israel's crosshairs, including one of the key players in the hostage deal negotiations. Among the targets are also individuals who survived previous assassination attempts. In Gaza, they reported that the IDF attacked a United Nations compound, and the IDF spokesperson clarified that the report is not true. Hamas has not changed its positions despite the resumption of strikes in the Gaza Strip. Egypt is working intensively to try and convince the terrorist organization to agree to the Witkoff proposal for the release of more hostages. Hamas demands that the proposal include an immediate move to the second stage of the hostage deal, which includes ending the war. Within the framework of Trump's immigration plan for Gaza residents, approaches were made to several African countries to see if they would agree to take in Gazans who wish to leave. One of the countries approved an interesting statement and did not rule out the possibility outright. We come to the question, will President Donald Trump manage to restrain the Houthis in Yemen? The Houthis continue to threaten, and early this morning, sirens were activated in many areas across Israel, including the center and including Jerusalem, and including my house. I woke up at 4 in the morning to rush my kids into the bomb shelter. The Houthis fired a second ballistic missile at Israel this week. So there's a lot ahead of us, and let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground live, reporting to you on what is happening in Israel. This is day 531 of the war with Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the militias in Iraq, and the terror organizations in Judea and Samaria. All of them are under the control of the Revolutionary Guards Corps in Iran, which is the head of the axis of evil in the Middle East. 1 second before we begin, I want to ask you to click the subscribe button so that you remain tuned to the truth in real time and never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground, especially not our live broadcasts. So, let's start for a moment with why Israel returned to fighting. According to political sources in Jerusalem, all heads of the security apparatus supported the resumption of fighting in the Gaza Strip, including Shin Bet head Ronen Bar, in order to try to move negotiations out of a dead end and apply pressure on Hamas to discuss the plan of the United States envoy Steve Witkoff. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said last night in a speech to the nation, "I accepted the recommendation of the IDF and the security officials to return to intense fighting against Hamas. From here on out, Israel will act against Hamas with increasing intensity. From here on out, negotiations will be conducted only under fire." According to senior security source, Operation Oz Vecherev was a successful operation that achieved its goals. The IDF succeeded in surprising Hamas and Islamic Jihad with a sudden aerial strike in various places in the Gaza Strip. The targets of the aerial strike, which was based on precise intelligence from military intelligence Amman and the Shin Bet, were mainly Hamas's mid-level ranks, company commanders, battalion commanders, deputy battalion commanders, and senior figures in the Hamas government, amongst them Prime Minister Issam El-Dalisis, the replacement of Rawahi Mustafa, right-hand man of Yahya Sinwar, and the Interior Minister and the Justice Minister. Many of the terrorists were eliminated in their beds before they managed to take cover. And according to senior security sources, Operation Oz Vecherev will proceed according to a plan structured, prepared in advance, and the military escalation will be gradual until the return to extensive ground maneuvering in the Gaza Strip if the situation requires it. According to security sources, the IDF is trying to apply military pressure on Hamas to bring it back to the negotiating table under conditions more favorable for Israel, in order to maximize the number of living hostages who will be released from captivity. The bombings in the Strip are based on precise intelligence and take place in locations where there are no hostages. The IDF is also trying, via aerial bombings, to hit senior terrorists who manage Hamas's civilian infrastructure in the Gaza Strip, on the way to toppling Hamas rule completely. A point that is no less important in the effort to thwart Hamas inside Gaza and to prevent it from carrying out attacks against Israel is that, according to security sources, Hamas planned in the last month to carry out such attacks and seize the initiative once more and surprise Israel with another massacre like 7. Hamas was apparently surprised by the timing of Israel's end of the ceasefire, as evidenced by the relatively large number of senior officials who were eliminated in the first wave of Air Force strikes in the Gaza Strip. However, they were not surprised by the collapse of the ceasefire itself. Israel's decision to stop bringing aid into the Strip about 2 weeks ago, its failure to begin withdrawing from the Philadelphia corridor after carrying out Stage A of the deal, and the failed contacts to continue to Stage B or extend Stage A made it clear to Hamas that Israel was determined to return to fighting. And during the 2 months of the ceasefire, Hamas did not waste any time. It tightened its control over the Strip, over the Palestinian people, among other things, by controlling the aid until Israel stopped it, which helped Hamas financially because they sell it to the Palestinian people. In the military realm, Hamas worked on rebuilding its strength by recruiting young Gazans, rehabilitating military facilities, mainly underground, I'm talking about terror tunnels, and restoring weapons production lines by using unexploded weapons that were left in the area during the months of war to prepare explosives and rockets. So what is that structured military plan to dismantle the Strip? This is a good question, right? I'm not sure that the full details at this stage are available, except to the security leadership of Israel. But we can talk about three main stages, and it seems that the first one has already occurred. The first stage is a wide-ranging aerial attack based on precise intelligence against senior Hamas members, field-level commanders, and operatives. The message was clear. We know where you are hiding. We are not afraid to attack you, and we will eliminate more senior officials and commanders if you do not release the hostages. Where is this going? Already, last night, senior Hamas officials told the mediators that they are committed to the ceasefire agreement and therefore are not responding. But if they do not return soon to effective negotiations for the release of the hostages, it can be assumed that the IDF will increase the manhunt for terrorists in the Gaza Strip. We will see more fire on entire areas to speed up the evacuation of the population, and in the IDF, and then the IDF will begin maneuvering in more locations. The critical stage will come with the start of a large reserve mobilization, and until then, they are giving Hamas time to climb down off their tree. What is different this time compared to the previous rounds of fighting in the Gaza Strip? That's a great question, and I have the answer for that. This time, the IDF has upgraded its ammunitions depots, bombs, missiles, rockets, and interceptor arsenal. The level of readiness of the armored vehicles, the tank units, and others is higher than before. New armored vehicles have been added, and the IDF estimates that Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi will be much more involved, the new Chief of Staff in Israel, Eyal Zamir, will be much more involved in the results and achieving them fast compared to his predecessor, and this is because of the American backing. And according to estimates, there is an intention to redefine the zone of humanitarian shelter. It is also assessed that the combined effect of cutting off humanitarian aid, blocking the transfer of fuel and gas, IDF maneuvering with fire, preventing patients from leaving, plus American pressure and other stuff, will increase the pressure on Hamas, for sure, also internally and through the IDF forces. And right now, in the past few hours, we see the return of ground forces into the Gaza Strip. And this, too, will happen gradually. But already today, we are seeing the IDF's renewed deployment on the Netzarim corridor and the Salah el-Adin road, which crosses the Gaza Strip from the north to the south. What is happening right now in terms of fighting? Okay, so the IDF spokesperson's unit announced this evening, Wednesday, that forces, Thursday, that forces in the Gaza Strip regained partial control of part of the Netzarim corridor over the last day, reaching its center. At the same time, it was reported that Golani Brigade forces positioned themselves on the Gaza border and will be ready to act. IDF forces blocked the Tansher Salah el-Din access in the Netzarim area south of Gaza City, heading north. However, southbound traffic on the axis, which Gazans use to return to the northern part of the Strip by vehicle, is still open. And in addition, the coastal road El Rashid in the west of the Gaza Strip is still open, and it is possible to get northward on foot. And according to the IDF, in the past day, IDF forces began focused ground activity in the center and south of the Gaza Strip with the aim of expanding the security zone and creating a partial buffer between the north and the south of the Gaza Strip. As part of the operation, the forces seized and expanded their renewed control up to the center of the Netzarim corridor. It was also reported that in parallel, it was decided that Golani Brigade forces would be positioned in the southern sector and be ready to act in Gaza. And shortly before the IDF announcement, Defense Minister Israel Katz published a statement in Hebrew as follows: Residents of Gaza, this is a final warning. The first Sinwar destroyed Gaza, and the second Sinwar will completely destroy it. The Air Force strike against Hamas terrorists was only the first step. What follows will be much harder, and you will pay the full price. Soon, the evacuation of the population from the combat zone will begin again. If all the Israeli hostages are not released and Hamas is not removed from Gaza, Israel will act with intensities you have never known. Take the advice of the United States President, return the hostages and remove Hamas, and you will have another options, including leaving to other places in the world for whoever wants to. And the alternative is total destruction and ruin. The IDF spokesperson updates that in the most recent strikes in the Gaza Strip, terrorist Yasser Muhammad Harab Musa, who held a security portfolio in the political bureau and was head of the development office in the Hamas terror organization's executive committee, was eliminated. Along with him was terrorist Muhammad Jamassi, who was also eliminated, and he was the chairman of the Hamas terrorist organization's movement emergency committee in the Gaza Strip. In addition, the Israeli Air Force attacked 20 Hamas and Islamic Jihad targets throughout the Gaza Strip last night, and according to the IDF, Navy ships struck an Islamic Jihad vessel that was being prepared for terror purposes. So 1 second before we continue, I want to remind you that we work day and night to bring you the truth about what is happening in Israel. And guys, if you want us to create more videos like this one, we need your help. Please go to www.tbnisrael.com/give. And you can help us by donating to our effort, and we will create more content, more videos like this one to share the truth from Israel. But please remember to keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem. Prayer works. And okay, right now, the report has just come in that in the last few hours, the IDF has expanded activity focusing on the coastal axis in the Bet Lahia area in the northern Gaza Strip. IDF forces began ground operations on the coastal axis in the Bet Lahia area in the northern part of Gaza. And at the same time, the IDF and the Shin Bet continued to strike dozens of terror targets of terrorist organizations across the Gaza Strip during the night. As part of the strikes, further jets and aircrafts attacked dozens of terrorists from the terror organization Hamas, along with military buildings, weapons, and other terror infrastructures that posed a threat to the IDF forces and to the State of Israel. At the same time, Hamas is ready to respond to hostage release proposals on the condition of moving to the second stage of the deal. Despite the resumption of military strikes in the Gaza Strip, Hamas has not changed its stance on the issue of releasing hostages. Sinu Hamas sources said that the terrorist organization informed the mediators it is ready to respond to any proposal that includes the release of hostages on condition of a framework for moving on to the second stage of the deal, as was published this morning in the Qatari newspaper El Arabi El Jadid. And in parallel, Egyptian sources reported that an Israeli delegation made a lightning visit to Cairo yesterday evening, and the sources noted that discussions are underway on a proposal now on the negotiating table. The sources estimate that the Hamas delegation will arrive in Cairo today to meet with Egyptian officials and discuss developments. This was reported earlier this week, and Egypt passed a proposal that bridges between the Witkoff plan and the Hamas's response on Friday. The Qatari newspaper claimed that the proposal includes releasing some living hostages along with cuffings of kidnapped casualties. On the other hand, Sinu Hamas official Usma Hamdan claimed that no official Egyptian proposal had been submitted. The Egyptian sources said that the Israeli delegation's visit lasted no more than 3 hours. During the visit, the delegation met with Egyptian intelligence chief Hassan Rashad and a senior military figure. The sources stated that the visit came after the Egyptian term of the American security company withdrew from the Netzarim axis following the wave of strikes. According to the report, the Israeli military delegation discussed the steps that the IDF took this week, including increasing the force size along the Philadelphia corridor and deepening the forces' preparedness in the corridor near the Egyptian border. The sources did not say what the Egyptians' response was. Despite the resumption of military strikes in the Gaza Strip, Hamas has not changed its position on the issue of releasing more hostages. And 1 second before we continue, it is important that you continue to spread the truth. Share what is happening in Israel, here in the Holy Land. Click on the subscribe button so that you remain tuned to the truth and continue to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, this city right here behind me. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, stunned the world when he presented his plan for the immigration of Gazans to other countries as a solution to the severe situation in the Gaza Strip. Hamas uses Gazan residents as human shields and bargaining chips to maintain its control as a terrorist organization. The AP news agency reported in recent days that Israel and the United States contacted the 3 countries in Africa to see if they would agree to receive Gazans who want to immigrate under Trump's plan. According to the report, it does not appear that the countries Somalia, Somaliland, and Sudan showed much interest in the proposal. One of the countries' approach, Somaliland, took a more relaxed view and might even agree to the move if it receives recognition itself. We will continue to report on every development and always be here to share the truth of what's happening. And guys, only 50% of you, the viewers, follow us. So if you want to help us reach more people, please take a second and click this subscribe button. It really helps us share the truth of what's happening here and reach more people. And 1 second before we continue, I want to ask your opinion on some topics. Okay, you ready? You can comment in the comment box, give me some answers. Maybe we find a solution for how we can solve the very difficult problems that we have here in Israel. Okay, so this time I'm asking you some questions. What do you think is the best way to get the hostages out of Gaza? Okay, I'm interested to see if you have any, creative ideas of getting the Israeli hostages out of Gaza. We have 59 hostages in Gaza. Some 25 of them are still alive. We want to get them back home. How can we do it? What's the best way? If you were the Prime Minister of Israel or the President of the United States, what would you do? Please respond on the comment box. I'm really curious to see that. Okay, second question. How should Israel and the world deal with the Houthis in Yemen? Okay, Houthis in Yemen woke me up and my family today at 4 a.m. in the morning with sirens of an incoming ballistic missile that's about to hit Israel. I had to rush to the bomb shelter with my 3 children. This is the second time that this has been happening this week, and I don't know, maybe 100 or 1,000 times since this war started. How should Israel and the United States deal with the Houthis? What should we do? Should we send troops? Should we do something else? Diplomacy? I want to hear your questions about that. It's important to remember the Houthis also attack ships that brings goods from the east to the west, raising the prices of everything that we buy, also in Israel, also in Europe, also in the United States. They affect all of us. And last question. Do you think that Iran is about to have a nuclear bomb? Is all this talk just talk, or do you think that really Iran is going to acquire a nuclear weapon pretty soon? I mean, they've been working on it a long time. It's making headlines all over the world. What do you think? Do you think that Iran will reach a nuclear bomb? Please comment in the comments here on YouTube. I'm really, really interested to see and to hear what you have to say. Okay? Guys, thank you, and keep spreading the truth, share and follow us. Now we will move on to our next topic, the strikes from our furthest enemy, Yemen and the Houthi terrorist organization. I just told you about that, but I'll give you a more detailed information. Around 4 a.m., sirens were activated in many areas throughout the country, including in the center of Jerusalem. The IDF quickly updated the sirens went off due to a single launch by the Houthis from Yemen, and minutes later, the IDF updated that a missile was intercepted outside of the Israeli airspace. This is the second missile this week since the start of the fighting. It is important to remember that at present, the Houthis were terminated. 16 of their officers were terminated in the last day because of the United States strikes. And according to the Saba news agency, which is identified with the Yemeni terrorist organization, the bodies of 10 Houthis of officers were buried in the capital Sana'a under their control. Most of the officers held relatively junior ranks, and only one held a high rank. This is the equivalent of a colonel. Two others held ranks equivalent to lieutenant colonel. The organization did not specify the time or place that the officers were terminated, and according to the news agency's report, they were terminated during the Holy Jihad. In this context, Arab media reported that this month a total of 38 Houthi terrorists were terminated, most of whom held military ranks, including 26 officers. And according to reports, since the start of the year, 154 armed Houthis have been terminated. Some were terminated in strikes by the American coalition, and some in exchanges of fire with Yemeni government forces that control the south of the country of Yemen. Donald Trump wrote this evening on his Truth social media account that reports are coming that while Iran has reduced the intensity of military equipment and general support to the Houthis, they are still sending high levels of supply. He added, Iran must immediately stop sending this supply, let the Houthis fight on their own. In any case, they are losing, but this way they will lose quickly. Huge damage has been done to the Houthi barbarians, and you'll see how it will gradually get worse. It's not even a fair fight, and it never will be. They will be completely destroyed. Incidentally, the Houthis are also trying to attack American ships. They have shot down many Houthi drones since the start of the wave of strikes, the Americans. And a senior security official said that the drones were launched towards the aircraft carrier USS Henry Truman and were downed long before they posed any kind of serious threat. Meanwhile, an American official told Reuters that the Houthis carried out a failed launch of a missile that fell off the coast of Yemen. Look, we will continue to update you on everything that happens, but the most important thing that you can do is help us share the truth. This is a spiritual war, so we need to know what's happening here. We need to share it so more people will know what's happening here, and we need to pray, because prayer works. I've seen so many miracles happening this year throughout this war, year and a half already, and I know that it works. So guys, if you have any kind of problem in your life, I recommend that you pray. But regarding Israel, let's unite in prayer, first of all, for wisdom to our leaders, for the IDF soldiers, for the hostages to be released from the Gaza Strip. Let's pray for all the civilians, if it's in Lebanon, in Syria, in Yemen, in the Gaza Strip, and in Israel that are affected by these terrorist organizations. Let's unite in prayer for their well-being, for their safety. Let's also pray for the Houthis, that God will change their heart to love Israel and not to hate Israel. I'm sure that none of them ever met an Israeli or a Jew in their life, and God can change hearts. So guys, let's keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem. Thank you for joining me here on this live. And next live we'll have also live questions that you can ask me. But for now, I want to hear your response, so please don't forget to send me your answers, your suggestions to how we can solve these very, very hard questions and hard problems that Israel is facing. Thank you, and keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem.
Hello.